when tomorrow and the day after, no, and 2 days after tomorrow, two of the guys that are recent graduates from here that I just attended the first board meeting will call in, and we'll have a Skype call on the big screen so they can talk to you. And they can tell you the woes of what it's really like out there. One board meeting was in San Francisco. One board meeting was in Los Angeles. As I might have mentioned, coincidentally, they're both from China, but only one's Chinese and one's a Caucasian Southern cracker from Virginia. And they're both in healthcare, different angles of healthcare. And one attended his seminar August of last year, but had to extricate himself from the company that he had founded, and it took him till the end of the year. So he didn't really get going on the program until around Christmas time. The other guy went to the seminar in October, the Chinese guy, and he lives in Hong Kong, and the other guy lived in Beijing. Both speak Mandarin. One speaks better Mandarin. I assume the Chinese guy speaks better Mandarin. I don't know that for a fact because it all sounds the same to me. But they're going to talk to you. We just finished our first board meeting. They have big hitters, whereas the Japanese guys that attend the seminar would say, big fucking hitters on their boards. And they will tell you how they did. And we've never done this before. And they're and you'll be able to ask questions. And I say in the seminar, there are such things as stupid questions to me. I'm not one of those guys that thinks there's no such thing as a stupid question. And you will learn after a day or two what's a stupid question or not. And to me, a stupid question is, if you should have fucking read it before you got here, that's a stupid question. That's why I tell you all you cunts to read the shit. And I already know a lot of you didn't. I can just look at your faces. Because you got all kind of reasons, which we will call excuses and procrastination from this day forward. But you've got all kinds of reasons. Your wife has dropped her kid in the parking lot. I mean, pregnant. She had a kid in the parking lot. Your 9-year-old daughter got knocked up. Your mother's got Alzheimer's. Your dad's spitting up blood from emphysema. We all got reasons. But the guys on that wall didn't allow those, and that's the Hall of Fame, didn't allow those reasons to stop them. Whereas heretofore, you have any fucking reason whatsoever was good enough, especially if you're English. And how many English people do we have here? Oh my God. Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. None. Not one English cunt. Well, that's good. Okay. But the English got a million reasons. It's funny. The English ruled 2/3 of the world at one time. Right? Now they got a little fucking island. Well, Fareed Zakaria tells them on his show 2 weeks ago that they're all cunts. And then now they're trying to defend it. It's a riot. Anyway, so we've all got reasons. But those guys and gals didn't allow those reasons to interfere with their dream. And the bottom line is, how bad do they want it? Or how bad do they want it? And needless to say, I know every one of those individuals intimately. And I've known them a long, long, long time. And I know, if I change the criteria just a little bit, we could have 5 times that many people. Because it's not all about money, those people. Although some of those guys made some big money, but it's not all about money. And these guys over here, and gals, my influencers, a lot of people that, influence me directly or indirectly in my life, like P.T. Conrad, the third guy that walked on the moon, who was a friend of mine. They're the astronaut, he's dead. But he was the third guy to walk on the moon. And when we talk about sacrifices, and I talk about him, Donald Trump and Eric Heiden, who won 7 gold medals in the 80 Olympics, and Freud and Churchill and Jesus Christ and Attila the Hun and Ted Turner and Napoleon, and all these guys and Maggie Thatcher and Golda Meir, and most of which I met personally and I knew personally. Obviously, like Tom Edison, I didn't know, but they didn't allow those things to get in their way. And when you start filling out your weekly reports, And I added 2 new sections in the last seminar. Even though it was implicit to me when I read your reports, time wasted, I asked you now, list your wasted reports, Richard, or list your wasted time, Richard. And it's absolutely fucking phenomenal what Richard would think is wasted and what I would think is wasted, or what Arya, right, would think was wasted. He's our Iranian who's pretending to be a Persian, just so everybody knows. Okay. And when you have to list day by fucking day, you will then become instantly aware or cognizant of the fact why you're fucking haven't done much in your life. How many Muslims do we have? 1. Okay. Well, that's one. The last few seminars we've had 2 Muslims, and we had normally a very devout Muslim and a not so devout Muslim. So the not devout Muslim would call the other Muslim a half-assed Muslim or a pretend Muslim. Okay? And the devout Muslim would go pray 5 times and do all the stuff he's supposed to, and that's great. But, and I'm not saying those 5 times prayers is an excuse for not getting things accomplished, because the other Muslim got less accomplished and he didn't pray 5 times a day. And when you see these things, you will just be dumbfounded. Now, Robert, who's been here for the 11th time, and Payne, I'd like to add that, Payne. This isn't like these other seminars where half the audience is there for free. Has brought his 15-year-old son, Christoph, and they're sitting apart. I really expect them to sit together in case there was some translation problems. But he has come back, as a lot of those guys up there have continued to come back, to reboot, to refresh themselves, because when you've lived a life outside the auspices or the scope of QLA, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever it is, this, even though intellectually you could take a test and pass it, true and false, blah, 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 you might even be able to pass some essay questions. But when you have to enact it, when you have to suck up your pantyhose and grab yourself by your privates and do shit, like these 2 guys that are going to explain to us on these Skype calls in a few days, they're going to tell you it's a motherfucker. But they're going to also tell you we did it. And when you look at the little shits, some of you guys that fancy yourself maybe macho, tough, you're going to look at these 2 little cunts and say, well, if these little cunts can do it, fuck, anybody can do it. And that's the point. That is a motherfucking point. If these 2 little cunts, and I hope you're watching me, you 2, and they know, if they can fucking do it, anybody on the planet can do it. And why I never thought of doing this before, Robert, you've been here a million times. How come you didn't think of it? It's so obvious to have these people. It's one thing, because a lot of them attend the seminar like Robert does. But it's another thing to have somebody not attending the seminar here that can speak to you on Skype and tell you how they just had their first board meeting, and this world-class guy's on his board, and this guy's on his board, and Deloitte's their accountants, and a world-class law firm, et cetera, which are the building blocks of the QLA system. But better late than never. After 22 years, I thought of it. Of course, 15 years ago, I'm not sure I could have done that easily. We had 2 movies last night. We had a little 15-minute deal of London Reel. What was your takeaway from the 15-minute London Reel that I did for Brian Rose a couple months ago? Anybody?
You're in a bromance.
I'm not sure what that means, but okay, I understand. I understand that. But
People are initially skeptical of you.
Correct. Well, I mean, some of the people that left it were so skeptical. And the reason why they're skeptical is very easy. Because when I say anybody can do it, even Nicholas, down deep inside, he doesn't believe that. And that's where the skepticism comes from. It's not that it's not possible to be done, David. It's that you can't do it because you're a bigger cunt than these other guys. That's where the skepticism comes from. Because there's no fucking doubt in my military or civilian mind or anybody's fucking mind that this shit works. But the real question is, can it work for Steve? Can it work? Well, we know it works for Robert. Can it work for, is it Rance? Rance. Or Violetta? That's the real question, and that's where your skepticism comes in. Can a dipshit half-ass Slovenian, Polish, Croatian dentist like Gory do it? Does he have the huevos? And it does take huevos, guys. Not real big ones, but it does take balls. But do you have to be an alpha male? No. And for those of you that did what I told you and you looked at that podcast, do you have to be an alpha male to make this work? No. You don't. Because, only 2 or 3 of the guys up there are alpha males. We've got a couple alpha females, but that's a whole other story. And women, normally, if they can get beyond childbearing years, make this work better than men. Because they can be more focused. But women will decide at 38 or 40, I want to have kids. And they don't give a shit about QLA. And they just wander off into the sunset and go start a family. And that's okay. That's okay. What else did you take away from the London Real bit?
I think pertinent to your question that you asked us to remind you about is the difference between the earlier QLA attendees and the later QLA.
Yeah, okay, well, that's not part of that.
But
And
Brian Rose being a new kind of internet you call them YouTube.
a cunt. Yeah, okay. Well, let's get to it right now. These are the old guys from the 90s and the early 2000s. You can look at the pictures. Okay? This was sex. These guys watch the sun come up in the fucking morning at 4 o'clock. And they take a shower, have some breakfast, and then they come in here. This was sex, no drugs, and booze and rock and roll back in those days. And the biggest difference between them and when it changed, it started to change about 10 years ago when people started getting politically correct. Because political correctness is a manifestation of a lack of self-esteem, in my judgment. These guys didn't give a fuck. You do. Which is unfortunate. So there was 4 or 5 years between about 2003 and 2008. I struggled. I said, fuck. I mean, the results should be going like this, and they're not. We flattened out. And then I discovered, instead of having the loose mentor program for a year, it became structured in 2010. And that's when Roberts came to the first seminar in 2010. And we've made it more and more structured ever since. And we've got more and more success ever since. But when we left you to your own devices, and because you want people to like you, and you want people to say nice things about you, it went downhill. And back in the 90s, nobody gave a shit. Literally nobody gave a shit. And now here you are, a product of your social and economic milieux, some of which you came from some good families, some of which you came from dirt poor, like I did. And we'll talk about that. And we'll talk about how that influences you. What about the talk with Steve Ballmer? What was the takeaway from that?
He actually gave a shit. That's the takeaway. Steve was actually there in everything he did. He was fully present. He wanted to be there. He had more energy and he cared.
You mean he gave a shit about Microsoft?
No, he actually gave a shit about everything he was doing.
Yeah, but you make it sound like he gave a shit about you.
No.
He doesn't give a shit about you, in my judgment. He did give a shit about Microsoft. He did give a shit, and he was... he's passionate, and the fact that they were only a 2-trick pony instead of a 3-trick pony, bothered him. And the fact that he didn't say any bad words there was stunning, because and we're going to talk about foul language and why I use so foul and why I'm so hard on you. Because it's fucking hard out there. Okay, YouTubers, go fuck yourself. We'll see you later.